the thing that you will have a hard time convincing me of, having gone through the PhD system in the sciences, is that some of the world's most brilliant people hold PhDs in the sciences. And I came up at a time when, in the early 90s, these people were told that the world was their oyster and that we were desperately in need of scientists. And I remember a friend of mine being told that he had a $14,000 a year job offer post-PhD from MIT with a pregnant wife. Mm-hmm. And the person who offered it was like, "This is great. We can get people for pennies."
Mm-hmm. Right.
And why was that? It was because of something that came out of the National Academy of Sciences and the National Science Foundation to slam American workers in the sector. This is very, very important. It had predicted that people would be paid 6 figures for PhDs, which was, larger than they had been paid for a long time. And it was the meddling with the market. The thing that I don't like about the personal responsibility issue is that individuals should not be solving the problems of, let's say, tech groups getting together and say, we will not poach each other's employees. That, like, the market has to work for people, not just institutions. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a sector in which you can make the market work for you, you have this feeling of anybody can do this. And in fact, what you need to do is you need to migrate to these sectors, because there are other sectors where you have, let's say, government intervention, which says we are going to interfere with the free working of the market, or we are not going to take into account that some people produce public goods. And so it's very important to me to understand that some people are coming out of very different circumstances in which it's very unlikely that they will be able to make their world grow and blossom, and that other people of extraordinary ability and high IQ and work ethic find themselves not fighting forces that they don't even understand.
Well, this is the sort of criticism that's often levied at me, because people say, well, you don't take the systemic problems sufficiently into account. And so that's a nice outline of the systemic problems.
When the banks decided that they should be self-regulating with respect, to their gearing ratios or the risk, there was one guy who wrote in at this SEC hearing to allow these investment banks to, do the last little bit before 2008 blew up everything. This guy Len Bollet, who was a computer consultant to banks, it's like one guy in the entire country saw a disaster coming and got involved in this internal game that was by banks for banks. And so what's very important to me is to understand, when you have bad behavior by institutions, it is pathological to put that responsibility on individual shoulders.
Well, but the only coda I would make to that, and I think that's a fair comment, is that what I'm hoping and what I'm trying to convince people of is that their ethical responsibility, which is partly to further their own development to the degree that they can, does extend to the community, is that you want to make ethical citizens so that they don't make mistakes that corrupt the operation of the system at a systemic level. The best way to do that, in my estimation, over the long run, is to concentrate on the ethical behavior of the sovereign citizen. Now, that doesn't address the systemic problems that are already in place.
The systems affect more people. That means that when people make vague accusations about systems that are dysfunctional, then it's not helpful. Yeah. What I see is not, you're making very specific criticisms of very specific institutions in very specific ways. Right. And that's useful, because then we can actually have a discussion about where those systems go wrong. So you can have a discussion about...
You're not criticizing the patriarchy.
Right, exactly. We can discuss...
No, I'm trying to crowd that out. And part of the point is that almost nobody in the regular commentariat wants to talk to me about what went wrong with our immigration policy, how did we get into trouble with mortgage-backed securities, what's going on with CPI adjustment.
Because the problem is to
fortunately we got something better going on here, so let's not worry about that. But we only have about 10 minutes left, because you got a hard out. So I thought we do a little self-therapy while we're here. So I want to ask you each one thing. I'll even answer it myself, and then we can all sort of comment. I'll start there.